Welcome back to What Brought You Here Today. On today's episode, I sit down with Andrea and Casandra of Your Human Therapists and Peace Project Counseling. I met these two lovely women through social media and have formed a wonderful friendship through their therapist book club and Instagram. How cool is social media? We talk about their journey to becoming private practice therapists, mental health in the community, and their community hub for therapists, including a graduate student hub and a book club. So let's sit down, settle in, and dive into what brought you here today. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to What Brought You Here Today. I am joined with Andrea and Casandra from Your Human Therapists. That is how I found them on social media, thanks to my scrolling habit late at night. I joined their book club, which is a bringing together of therapists and other mental health professionals and discussing books, and it's kind of evolved into something bigger than that and maybe like a mini friendship through social media. I don't know. We seem to have conversations outside of book club, so I consider you both friends at this point. And it's been like 6-7 months now, if I can do math correctly. So welcome. Thank you both for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having on.
Yes.
I definitely would not say maybe. I would say a definite friendship is formed through book club and extended onward from it.
Yay.
Ryan,
We
we
do.
clicked.
We do. Yeah. And we still do. We did and we still do. Yeah, I think social media is kind of a wild thing. I think we've had a lot of conversations about the ups and the downs of social media, but I'm just really thankful that it brought me to book club and then to you two as well. So this is great. I would love to know how you guys got where you are right now as far as like in your private practice. What's the backstory?
Go ahead, Casandra. Take it away. All right. So our story sounds pretty similar. So anytime we're asked this question, we kind of mirror each other a little bit. So we were both working at agency jobs as behavior support specialists, behavior intervention specialists. And when the pandemic hit, we realized that we had this degree, we had this licensure, and we weren't actually putting it to use within the one-on-one therapy space. We were writing behavior support plans and functional behavioral analysis and things like that, but it wasn't that one-on-one connection. So again, in the heart of the pandemic, we decided to pick up and start Peace Project Mental Health Counseling. We started all virtually and we still are today. And really, it was just kind of a part-time thing that we were doing after our 9-to-5 agency jobs. And it morphed into this private practice that we are now doing full-time.
That's incredible. Did you guys go to grad school together?
We
What
did
is
not.
program, but at
Okay.
different.
So you met at the agency?
Yeah.
Okay. What was it like starting a private practice during the pandemic? I feel like there's a deep breath that's wanting to come out.
Well, I feel like it's an interesting conversation because the pandemic was so hard for so many people, and we were fortunate to be in the career we were in at that time. So fortunately and unfortunately, it was not that difficult, only because the services were so needed at that time. But we also feel kind of weird saying like, it worked out in our favor. Yay, pandemic. But I mean, the services were so needed. And that was a big part of why we finally looked at each other and we were like, we're sitting here writing behavior plans when there are so many people out there who need support. They need one-on-one therapy and we have the degrees. That's what we want to be doing. Why are we not doing that?
Yeah. Was a lot of the clients that you were getting into private practice, were they realizing that they were ready for help, or was it just a lot of focus on the pandemic and the unknown? Were you noticing some themes?
I think it was a combination of both. When we first started, we were seeing a lot of clients with autism spectrum disorder. That's the type of work we were doing at the agency job. So that was kind of our jam. That's what we knew well, and that's what we did. So oftentimes it was, the parent or guardian calling for services for their child. but that transitioned into teenage girls, high schoolers, young college students calling for that exact reason that you mentioned, having a difficult time in the heart of the pandemic.
What is your demographic 3.5 years removed from the pandemic? I don't, yeah.
I'd say probably anywhere from high school students, college students, young adults. I mean, we've really shifted I would say the bulk of our population is between high school and young adults. We both still have some kids on our caseload, and we also do see adults at this point too.
Okay. What are your experiences with kids in telehealth? Because I also work with kids and some do telehealth, and I have thoughts.
I think it depends on the client and the child specifically. You can have one session where you feel like you're on a roller coaster and you're starting to get a little dizzy, feel like you're going to vomit because they're bouncing all over the place. You could have another session that's really fun for you, right? Because it's a different level of engagement than sitting one on one with a young adult or college student.
Mhm.
And then there are some cases where we would refer out because the telehealth just didn't seem like it was as effective as it could have been with a one on one provider in person. So I think it really is dependent on the client and their needs.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I've had multiple kids just hang up on me.
I was going to say the hardest part is they can just shut the computer.
Yeah. Are you coming back? Like, how do I need to wait here in case you come back? Um, and I've had a few kids too who will only use the chat option, which I appreciate and understand the value of that as an option. Um, but also, it's very difficult sometimes to only chat. But yeah, the roller coaster on a telehealth call is real. Definitely. Have you two talked about moving to in person at all or a hybrid?
We talk about it every so many months. Well, we did talk about it every so often for a long time. And then, the new COVID variant came out and everything was closing again. And we were like, why are we even thinking about this right now? Nothing is stable. And then after when it started to feel like life was normal again, life just kept happening for the two of us. So it was like, it is just way more convenient at this moment in time to keep it the way it is.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it seems that that is becoming a normal to offer to just stay virtual, and that a lot of people in private practice are thriving that way. So that's really awesome. I'm so glad that it didn't go away after the pandemic. I feel like, especially for people and professionals who do take insurance, I feel like that was a big worry that telehealth would go away, that it was just a temporary thing. But if it did, you know, so many people would lose access. And I feel like that's so unfortunate. Um, I feel very fortunate being in a big city in Minneapolis and where there are a lot of resources, and the community is seeming to rally around mental health issues. Can the same be said for where you two are located in New York?
I want to say we've definitely seen more engagement in mental health within the community over the past few years. Definitely in different ways too. I mean, whether that's a community event that's being held or, you know, a workshop of some sort. I do think we here too are striving to help end that stigma in different ways.
And you two have done, I've seen through your social media, some things with the radio station and some other community events. What do you think of the community events as a whole?
I think when we're there, it seems very powerful. Like it's really cool to see everybody coming together when outside of that, you don't know if these conversations are really being had. And one thing that Cassandra and I always laughed about was a couple of years ago, we had an interview and I can't remember who we were even talking to, but they started talking about how like, yeah, when I was talking to my therapist, they said, and we were both like, people don't say that like they did in a couple of years ago. And now it's in normal conversation. And I think that's been a really cool shift too. I'll be at the hairdresser or at, the store and I'll overhear somebody say something about like, yeah, well, my therapist told me to. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're admitting that we see a therapist out loud in front of all of these strangers. Like that's been really cool. But yeah, the events overall, we love participating in them. We went through a period where we tried really hard, like every summer to get a couple in just because they're they're powerful.
Mhm.
It's cool to see everybody come together.
Are there people that you've been partnering with the most? I think I've primarily seen the radio station, but maybe there's others.
We did have a very good we have a good relationship with multiple people in the community who do different events. One of the bigger establishments in our community is NAMI Rochester, and we do have a very good relationship with them. They have shifted a lot, and the people that work there are different now than they used to be. So we don't really know the newer people. We still show up at their events and, we still do things with them up until like the end of the summer. And now it's about reestablishing that relationship with the new people that are there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's okay. People change, people move on, right? I think our NAMI chapter here is pretty large too. Minneapolis is a pretty big city, but that maybe is a good idea for me to reach out to them to see what they have coming up, but and just get some more community events, as I'm working towards my license. So that's been my main focus is just getting all of the hours that I need, which in Minnesota is 4,000. It's so many hours.
How many hours?
So many. 2 years if you're working full time, right? That it's insanity.
I want
So
to say ours was 3,000. We do.
yeah, that seems a more attainable.
Okay.
Yeah. Or at least like count the 1,000 hours that we do during our internship here. I don't know if that's a standard across the board, like grad programs. So I had 1,000 hours for my 1 year internship and then 4,000 hours after.
Can't remember how many hours our internships and practicums were, but they did not count toward those hours.
No,
They
we had
really
such
should.
a large gap too between when we were in grad school and interning and when we actually became licensed.
Okay. Just because of how it happened or just like the way it works?
For me personally, it was honestly very difficult to find a job without being licensed right out of grad school. I applied everywhere, I interviewed everywhere, and I just was not getting anything. So I was working at a car wash, which was my job previously. And then after that, when I transitioned to the agency work, I was there for quite some time, for about 5 years. And I think it's one of those things where you want more, you want to go back to what you got a degree in, but there's a certain level of comfort
Mhm.
with where you're at. And I think there was a little bit of fear of stepping out of that comfort zone for a while.
Do you feel that and this is for both of you, that your maybe work life balance or just balance overall being in private practice has improved? I have worked in many hospitals and clinics in a school setting and can say that for me, it's improved being in a private practice, but I don't know if that's the case for everyone. Because I feel like some people thrive in those environments, like really do well in the chaos of agency, hospital, inpatient jobs.
I mean, I will say 1,000% has improved. One of the reasons why I personally was ready for that jump was because I was on maternity leave when we switched. And I just looked at her and I was like, I'm not going back there. I can't go back there and be expected to show up at 7 a.m. and stay until 4 p.m. with 3 kids now. Like, it's just, no.
And I was like, I can't stay if you're not coming back.
That's how it works, right?
Terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a big driving, not to say it helped our decision, but I think it helped push us. We
Absolutely.
knew we were
Yeah.
going to do it, but I think that like the timing was just kind of like, all right, well, it's now or never, because if I go back, then I
Yeah.
have to, I'm in and I have to be there for at least another month. I was like, I'm just not, I can't.
Yeah. I think that paired with the pandemic was a big push because, things got really difficult with the pandemic in agency life. So with just, I don't know, it's just like kind of the perfect storm, I guess.
And I imagine the restrictions were so much tighter or like more intense. Minneapolis also had very strict like COVID restrictions, but I feel like New York was very strict. I remember being pregnant. I had my daughter at the height of the pandemic in August 2020. And my OB was like, New York is starting to not let partners in when babies are like when the person goes into labor. And then she's like, and that is a very real possibility here. And I was like, no, the baby's staying in then. Like, I'm not having a baby alone, also during a pandemic. But it felt like everything was being like modeled after them, after New York. And I was like, this is so intense and I don't live in that environment. So I can't imagine what it was like also trying to work in a helping profession where you just didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. I think going back to your point about work home balance and things like that between agency life and private practice, I want to say the compassion fatigue was also much more prominent in the agency life during the pandemic. I mean, we were working with vulnerable populations who were not able to get through COVID, some of them, and now working in private practice, I feel like I don't experience that as often as I was in the middle of the pandemic at the agency. Still have some compassion fatigue come up, obviously, but it's just not as intense as it was during that time.
Yeah. For the other helping professions that may be using, what do you guys do when your compassion fatigue is ramping up? We all know that I go make whale sounds in the car.
I think it's easier in private practice too to give yourself that break when you need it. And we've had conversations before where it also feels like the bounce back from a difficult day is a bit easier than it was previously. Like I don't consistently feel that compassion fatigue or consistently feel that stress and overwhelm. If it's a really bad day, it seems like now it's more manageable in regards to, okay, how can I take care of me right now? Because I need to take care of me before I'm able to show up for these clients. And with the flexibility of private practice, there's so many different ways that you can do that. And when you're working with your own schedule, you can, adjust your time a bit more than you would be able to in a standard 9 to 5.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier to be proactive with private practice and taking care of yourself. Like even just scheduling things to start a little bit later so you can get that movement in the morning, or knowing that in between you have an hour break, at some point I'm going to go and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to cool down. And it feels a lot more manageable to stay on top of it as opposed to feel like you are drowning and you're burnt out and then trying to climb back out of that and then take care of yourself.
Yeah, I can agree to all of that. And think that being in private practice this past year has really shown me that there's a lot more flexibility and that it's encouraged and okay to also take care of myself as the therapist. And I think that's also what's really beautiful about your social media platforms. You mini influencers, you guys, that you're really trying to normalize and humanize therapists and possibly other helping professions along the way, like nurses and teachers, that we are also human and have feelings and thoughts and lives and want to also be able to live our lives the way that we help you all live your lives. And maybe this is true everywhere, like a big conversation right now is, and I feel like this is all over social media, just like why therapists feel like, maybe in air quotes, that they can charge so much money, or like the understanding is maybe the disconnect is that we are also people with families and lives and bills and student loans that we also need to take care of. And so I'm trying to, I don't know, just maybe wrap my head around what that disconnect is. And I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on it.
I think for me, I would say we're going to go to the mental health is just as important as physical health conversation,
Mhm.
and how much people, are willing to pay a doctor to support them physically, but then we're not willing to pay a therapist to support them mentally, when in the long run, the saving of the lives, like how similar is that?
Mhm.
And I mean, a lot of times we'll be like, well, how much are you, and I'm not knocking anyone because I'm this person too, but how much are you willing to spend on your hair each month? Or how much are you willing to spend on that coffee or those sweatpants? But like, where are the priorities, I guess? So that's sort of where I end up going when I think about that conversation coming from a public point of view, as opposed to as a therapist who, like, I know why I need to charge this much, but this is why you should consider it being worth it.
Right.
I love that the three were hair, coffee, and sweatpants.
Like, I was
Love
laughing
it.
She's
What
like,
is
that's
that
what I
sweatpants?
spend my money on.
I'm like, people probably don't spend as much on sweatpants as I do, but
No, as I say in all of my telehealth sessions, with sweatpants on the bottom and a shirt.
Good for you. You want to have some comfy sweatpants.
Yeah. Yeah. But I totally agree with that. And I think too, that goes back to it being person specific as well. I mean, if we're talking about going to see a therapist through an agency, of course, a lot of agencies offer insurance options, right?
Mhm.
But how much are we actually paying at an agency? We might not really know. That might look pretty similar to what we would pay out of pocket in private practice seeing someone. And, maybe the client doesn't want all of their information sent to the insurance company. Maybe their main focus isn't a diagnosis. So I think that conversation can be person dependent as well.
You are fully private pay, right? Self pay. What are your thoughts coming from both of now being removed from having to diagnose? How has that shifted your work to now not having to diagnose?
I think it's a little
I love
tricky.
when you two look at each other like, who's going to go first here? This is why we should start raising hands.
I think I'm pretty confident we both have the same answer for this one, but if I'm way off base, jump in. Technically, licensed mental health counselors in New York cannot diagnose. So, which seems ridiculous. And it also seems ridiculous when you have to explain that to a client, because they're like, so what am I seeing you for?
Can you explain this to me?
No, I can't, because I don't understand it myself. There are many movements in place, but they've been in place for 6 to 10 years now, of trying to make that happen. But technically, we cannot diagnose. So that being said, it's funny because if we did take insurance, of course we have to put a diagnosis down. And even for our private practice paperwork, like, we have to have diagnoses on this paperwork. So yes, it makes it a little more feel good if somebody comes in with a diagnosis on paper already that they have received from a different clinician or a different provider. But yeah, we're technically not, we can't diagnose. So we've never been focused on diagnoses.
Okay.
And I mean, I think just our practice and our work in general is so focused on the human in front of us and the symptoms that we're, treating as opposed to the diagnosis, which I know can be very beneficial for certain people trying to receive certain services. But since we technically can't give those anyway, it's not really something that we've had to shift on or.
So who gives it?
Sometimes they're primary care providers, sometimes they're psychologists.
Okay. And then they bring that to you and you would work off that diagnosis if that were the case?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes they don't bring a diagnosis to us.
Yeah. Interesting.
Which, when we connect with, let's say, primary care physicians, they're asking us what we see and then they're diagnosing what we're telling them anyway. So it makes no sense. It's New York for you.
Well, it's like we learned the DSM from front to back, sideways. Like,
Right.
what?
Well, you are the mental health professional. It seems strange that you would not be able to be the ones giving that diagnosis. Like, that doesn't make sense. But I think, again, this goes back to how mental health has been set up and treated in the past.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think the biggest argument right now, while people are trying to pass all of these initiatives, laws, whatever they are, is that we have way more, I don't know, study time, actual class time on the DSM and on diagnosing than a lot of other professionals who are allowed to. So, it's like the amount of time we actually spend specifically learning that material to not be able to use it is a little silly. But
Yeah. And it's the very opposite here. We have little class time and like theory around the DSM, but we diagnose. Pre-licensed, I give diagnoses because insurance here, you have to have it. And I am being supervised and they sign off on that and we talk about it, and that's a lot of my learning about the DSM has been hands-on and through consultation and through supervision. My class in college was like 3 months long, and let's cover the very basic ones that you see all the time. Anxiety, depression, ADHD. Not the other 300 that are in there. Yeah, that's kind of wild. For both of you, what was kind of the turning point that you were like, I'm going to be a therapist?
Stories are a bit similar on this question, too.
Are you guys the same person?
We're not the same person. But it does seem repetitive sometimes, so I apologize in advance. I went for undergrad in psychology, so I always knew that I was interested in the brain and how it works and things like that. And then I didn't want to stop going to school after undergrad. I liked school. I enjoyed it. So I was exploring different options, and that's where I landed on St. John Fisher's mental health counseling program. It wasn't like this huge revelation or anything like that. It was just kind of, okay, this is a helping profession. I know I want to help people. I know I'm interested in psychology. This is something I want to do.
What's yours?
pretty similar. My undergrad was in criminology, and I always sort of wanted to do something, whether that was in the jails or something with, I think juvenile delinquents was my population in my head. Like, I want to work with that population in the jail. And then I went and got my master's in psychology. And you can't do anything with a master's in psychology, surprise, after however many thousands of dollars you spend. And so then I was like, I'm gonna get my doctorate 100%. And then after that year of my master's, I was like, I'm absolutely not going to get my doctorate. I am tapped out for this. So then I was kind of like, okay, well, you can't do anything with a master's with psych. So what am I going to do? And then same thing, I sort of landed upon St. John Fisher's mental health counseling program. And just between like the criminology and psychology, it all just sort of morphed into like, wait, that would be cool. So it was kind of random, but also I grew up with a mom who was a social worker.
Okay.
So sort of what she did all the time.
Yeah.
So
So you both have masters in psychology.
I have a master's in mental health counseling. Andrea's got 2 over there.
I have a master's in psychology and a master's in mental health counseling and a lot of
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Understandable. I also have 2 masters in 2 different psychologies. I get it. But so the mental health counseling program is like this, what's it called? St. John. Yeah.
John
John
Fisher.
Fisher University.
So that's also a master's. And that's how you were able to get licensed or move into a
So
therapist role.
it's a master's of science in mental health counseling.
Okay.
And then we did our practicum, our internships through there. We were not able to get ours towards actual licensure at our agency job at first. It took a few years for them to approve that. So that was another,
Okay.
roadblock for us in obtaining that licensure.
Got it.
So we ended up receiving the actual hours towards licensure through that agency position.
Okay. But so when you say you couldn't get licensed with a master's in psychology, that master's is different than your St. John Fisher one.
Yeah.
Right? Got it. Yep. Okay. So like for me in Minnesota, I have my undergrad in psychology and then I have a master's of counseling psychology. And that's it.
No, yeah. So yours, was that a 2-year program?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a very specific like counseling psychology. Mine was a 1-year program and it was just a master's in psychology.
Okay. That makes
So-
sense now. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a racket education is sometimes.
It's actually wild to hear different stories from different states, especially meeting, all of you from book club and things like that, to hear like, oh, I have this credential, I have that one, or I took this test. These were my requirements. This is the school I went to. This is how internships work for me here. Because it's so different, but so similar at the same time.
Yeah, and I think there's just so many ways to get there. And everyone, I mean, we have the one person in book club who has like way different credentials, who just opened her own private practice or like group practice, but kind of just went like a very different route in his practicing. And I'm just like, it's so cool. But also like, how did you get there? Like, I thought it was only ABC, this straight line.
Right.
And it's not, which is great. I think that opens the doors for a lot of other people to come into this profession, which we need, maybe desperately need at this point. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry you have so much student debt.
I think we all do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that we all have it.
Yeah.
And that it's just part of our normal lives these days. We're going to wrap up here pretty soon. I would love to know what one takeaway, one piece of advice, one thing that you would each like people to know, like that you would shout from the rooftops.
This is more focused towards therapists. So it goes back to your human therapist theme, is that it's okay if you're a therapist and you need a little bit of extra TLC with your mental health. It's okay. It's valid. I don't like using the word normal, but it's more normal than it's made out to be. So, if you are in the counseling world or really any profession that's helping others every day in this very heavy world, it is okay to ask for help.
Yeah. Andrea, what's yours?
I think to make sure to switch it up enough where we're not giving the exact same advice like the rest of our interview. I think I would just say that you never know what someone else is going through. And so just day to day living your life like that and just, leading with love and compassion and just remembering the person in front of you may not be as happy as they seem or may not be as strong as they seem. And just, I don't know, really leaning into feeling compassion for yourself and for everybody else in front of you.
I think that reminds me of something that I not learned in grad school, but maybe was reminded of in grad school too, that you don't know what other people are going through and experiencing in that moment. Like, we get so mad when people maybe cut us off on the freeway or the road, but we don't know if they're trying to get to an emergency or if they just got really bad news, and just trying to be mindful and compassionate that everybody's having their own experience every day. And the world feels like it's crumbling and falling apart right now. And it's okay for us to also take care of us, like Cass said. Where can the people find you? I'm going to link it all in the show notes, but you have a lot of different platforms. There's a lot going on, especially with like the Mighty Networks thing now. So go market yourselves. This is your place.
You can find us over at our Instagram at Your Human Therapist. That is our platform for mainly therapists, where we can validate each other, talk about all things therapy and being human and what that's like. And then we also have our private practice page, Peace Project Counseling, Andrea. Is that right?
It's just so much time.
You can see where our main marketing focus has been recently. So you can find us at Peace Project Counseling when it comes to all things private practice and mental health.
And you can only take clients in New York, or you're licensed. You do South Carolina too, right?
Yep. So telehealth for New York, South Carolina, and Delaware.
Okay. Delaware? Is that you, Andrea?
Yeah.
Are you from Delaware?
No, I had a client who I started seeing during the pandemic, and then when it all shifted over, it was like either you just stop seeing this person or you get licensed to do telehealth there. So I was like, I'm not just going to stop seeing the person.
Okay.
So now I can take clients in Delaware.
I love how I tried to add that in so smoothly, and Ryan's like, "What?"
Because it is so random, and it was honestly
For real.
because of one person. Yeah.
I mean, okay, but can we just say, like, I think that really speaks to, one, how much services are needed in other places, and that, maybe there should be a breakdown of whether we're crossing some borders or not, but also that you were willing to get licensed, which isn't just a click of a button. Maybe it is for Delaware, but I don't feel like typically it's, there's a little hoop you maybe have to go through.
Just
But
more
to
money.
do that for one client, yeah, you have to pay for
Yeah.
that. Like, you don't just get licensed for free. Where you could have just easily said, I can find you someone in Delaware.
Yeah.
Right. So good for you for being licensed in Delaware now. I hope you get a lot of clients from Delaware to make it worth it.
If you live in Delaware, give me a shout.
Oh, do you guys want to talk about Mighty Networks really quick? We have a couple minutes. So maybe I can run like my experience. So I found both of you really quickly, like through Instagram, through Your Human Therapist, jumped on the book club. Book club has maybe blown up. It did in the summer. I feel like we were very busy and had a lot of people joining and really great conversations. And it was really nice to connect with other therapists and go through a book together and really break down the concepts and have that space to be vulnerable and transparent and share and process in a way that we don't typically get to. So I think out of book club booming, this new platform evolved that can maybe handle a bigger capacity, right, for book club. And then there's also a community component where people can, the community part is free, right? The book club is a monthly fee, but you can join the community platform for free and connect with other therapists all around the world right now, right? Someone's from the UK. There's people from Canada. Is there other countries in there? A lot from the US, and then I noticed that there's also like a pre-licensed platform component to it. Mighty Networks is great. I'll link it in the show notes. It's a great platform. You should check it out for free.
Thank you for marketing
Yeah.
Mighty Networks for us. You put it together so eloquently. I think better than either of us could have done in that moment. So thank you.
Of course. But I will just add from a therapist and just a human perspective, like it's so nice. I'm very active in the platform. I really love connecting with other therapists and other people and really hope that it starts to grow and more connections start to happen and conversations happen. But I just think that we can feel very isolated in private practice and even in a group practice. I only see my colleagues a couple times for a few seconds throughout the day. And it's just really nice to have another way to connect. So I encourage everyone to join. Even if you don't jump into book club, just check out the platform and make some new connections.
I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. It was so fun talking with Andrea and Casandra about their journeys and their thoughts on mental health. If you are interested in joining the community hub or finding them on social media, everything is linked in the show notes. Thank you for your support and listening, and I hope you have a joy-filled day.